I want to talk about the internet and the web. First, the internet, is some of its history. It originated from something called ARPANET. And ARPANET stands for the Advanced Research Projects Agency. And what it was is 4 universities first got together. You can see here UCLA, Stanford, Santa Barbara, University of Utah. And they got together and they started sending data back and forth. At that point, a little later on, 1974, the IEEE helped publish some of the first TCP designs, and that kind of helps facilitate some of the transmission of the data back and forth between multiple computers. With that, TCP/IP was born, and CSNet was created. We first saw the first public WAN. That's a wide area network. So this is multiple computers across kind of a big area starting being developed. And then we started seeing some implementations of DNS. That's where you can type in a word and it will kick back an IP address. We'll talk about those a little bit more. You can see where different domain names, these .com, started to come around in 1985. In 86, we started seeing some modern email routing systems being used with a little @ sign. Moving on here, first internet search engine was developed in 1990. The www was made public. Previous to that, a lot of this internet stuff was only for universities and was not commercially available. I probably should mention up here in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee. We kind of refer to him as the kind of the father of the web, but he created essentially HTML. Well, the way that we send documents back and forth, and kind of created that spec to have these talk between each other on HTTP. We'll talk some more about those protocols here in a bit. We can see here moving forward in some of the history. Netscape and Yahoo were created. 95, we saw Amazon come around, Craigslist, and eBay all go live. Alta Vista, which probably nobody knows what that is, search engine was established. 1998, Google came around. We saw a couple guys out of Stanford decided to change how search engines worked and do some things Yahoo wasn't, and really took a big chunk of the market away from Yahoo at that point. In 2000, we had the .com bubble burst, and that was when a lot of companies were just putting tons and tons of money into these online stores, and they just couldn't turn a profit. A lot of them, even Amazon, didn't turn a profit, I think, for its first 10 years. And I guess there were some DDoS attacks. That's where too many users hit something at a time, but I don't think that was the whole .com bubble burst, to be honest with you. WordPress launched in 2003. WordPress runs probably about a quarter of the internet now. You might not know that, but it does. We can see Facebook coming around in 2004, and YouTube and Reddit coming online in 2005, Twitter in 2006. You can see in 2014 they started enforcing HTTPS, Google Assistants, and different chatbots coming around. I guess what we're trying to show with this is the internet does have a long history, but things definitely are going a lot faster. I've got some more graphics down here on how many users. This goes up to 2017. Clearly it's higher than that, now. But in this graphic, you can see that at least 54.4% of the global population has internet, and it's definitely gone up quite a bit. You can see here in the early 2000s a big peak, and it's starting to pick up in this area. And I think that has to do primarily with mobile adoption and mobile phones and having internet. You can see here 25% are English, 19% are Chinese, and then we have a bunch of other languages as we kind of move around at this point. North America is clearly not the biggest user at 8.3%, but we can see Asia is just killing it over there at 52%, and see how some of these are broken down by the country. I have another graphic I found here. which talks about countries that are online. So the share of the population using the internet. And if I zoom in, you can see Iceland is clearly almost all online at 98%. And if we scroll down to the bottom, North Korea is less than 1% online. But if we look at continents, I guess 46% of the world is on here as far as 2016 goes on this one. Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. I think that a big chunk has changed, though, again, just because mobile devices are coming online and people can afford a mobile phone with internet and they don't have to worry about infrastructure on getting DSL or cable or something into their home in some of these third world countries. And also, a computer is much more expensive than a mobile device. So I think we're starting to see a lot more of that, and a lot of these other countries come online. You can see here kind of the market share and growth. It's been pretty steady for North America in the last 15 years, but we've seen Europe and Central Asia grow quite a bit. The biggest growth, from what it looks like, South Asia is really starting to pick up right now, and Sub-Saharan Africa is definitely picking up quite a bit as well, and we'll see that grow. That's at almost 3.5 billion. So it's got a little ways to go. Again, you can kind of see some different things on this one. The first web page published and the first web browser released in 1991. We'll talk about Mosaic here in a second. 93, the Mosaic web browser was released. It looked something like this. It's quite primitive. But I actually remember hearing about Mosaic a long time ago. I remember you could buy it in a box, which is kind of crazy, but really primitive web browser. But, the element of typing in your URL up in this top area was there, and some basic things there. You can see Netscape in 94 was released. And I looked up what Netscape kind of looked like back in the day, and you can kind of see it here. On this video that I found, and people surfing. You had your back, forward, and home. You could print. Again, it was really basic. Had this nice little graphic that would move stars over here as it loaded pages. But again, just really basic for its time. eBay, Yahoo, Amazon all launched in 95. Not many companies that launched before 2000 made it through the dot-com bubble burst, but some did, and those are some of the big ones. Internet Explorer came around. I don't know how many of you have used Internet Explorer, the old versions, but it had all kinds of problems. This is an example running in Windows, probably XP, something like that. I think this is version 7 maybe. But Internet Explorer had a lot of issues, and Windows again phased that out and moved to Edge, and they have some other browsers coming down the pipeline as well. Google Search, 97, 98, I thought it was. Alibaba is a big one. It's kind of like Chinese eBay, I guess you could say. Napster was a big famous one. Baidu was founded. Baidu is the Chinese Google that they use there. Wikipedia came about. Skype, 2003. We had this big shift to Web 2.0 that was moving away from static websites into dynamic websites that would allow content to be generated on the fly depending on what you were doing. We can see YouTube and Google Maps and Twitter. The iPhone was definitely a big game changer in there as far as bringing a lot of people into the smartphone market, and kind of goes along there. But kind of interesting to see how much traffic. You can see North America here at 78%, kind of moving around there. I do have a little graphic of the timeline of how these browsers took shape. So Mosaic was definitely first, but Netscape was the one who really took it here. And you can see its growth, and it really hit its heyday in 95, 96, 97, without question. Opera is a browser. Maybe some of you used before. It's not super popular, but it's kicked around, and it's really it's nice. It's fine, and a lot of people use it. You can see Internet Explorer launched. Internet Explorer didn't really make much of an impact until version 6, I believe. Patched a lot of its issues and started taking away a lot of the market share of Netscape in there. And I felt like 6 definitely made a big impact, even though it had a lot of problems. And you can see how Netscape really fizzled out. Safari came about 2003 on OS X, and Netscape really kind of didn't have much market. Firefox started as the Phoenix Firebird, and you can see Firefox version 1 here, and it really started taking a lot away from Internet Explorer. We can see the movement here now in 2007 of the shift over into Firefox away from that. And a lot of people at that time just didn't understand that they could go to another browser other than the one that was default on the computer. So that was really nice. And then we saw Chrome come about here in 2008. Now this graphic only goes to 2011, but Chrome has definitely grown into the behemoth that we know it is today. So Chrome, as you can see here, this is a browser market share of the world. Chrome is sitting at 67% of the market share, followed by Firefox and then Internet Explorer, and then Edge, which replaced out Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer probably just around mostly because older computers still haven't updated. And Safari, on Macs is definitely being used. And we can see here some others. There's Opera. Yandex is one, a Russian one. These are all desktop and laptops. If we flip this over to mobile, though, we can definitely see a big change where Chrome, again, is still number 1, but that's mostly your Android devices and some iOS devices. And then Safari in number 2, just because of Apple devices, without question. And then Samsung browser, some different Android devices there. But those different browsers, we're going to talk about standards in another video, but we used to have a lot of problems with them back in the day. But today they're all pretty standard, and now they're just fighting who's faster, has more features, this or that. It did kind of remind me a little bit about AOL way back when. So I'll put this on here for you. It's signing into AOL. Had nice dial-up. You can hear it there. If you've never heard a modem, it's pretty bad. I'll mute that. So AOL used to be how the vast majority of people got online. I remember the concept was completely, lost on my mother, who didn't understand that a browser could use the internet. She thought that the internet was American Online, and a lot of people did. And you could get in here and do, your email and chat and get files. But things have definitely changed quite significantly since then. And we have all these new browsers now and all these new tools, things like that. The internet is broken out. Well, I guess first off, the internet is really just all of the computers in the world that are connected together. Okay, that could be your phone, that could be, your Xbox, that could be your computer that you're watching this on, whatever it is, right? And all these computers, often we refer to this as the cloud, right? And all these computers together, make the internet. Well, inside of that, sometimes we might have, let's say at the university, a bunch of computers that are networked together, and they have servers that only they can access, that they're behind a firewall. And that network that we call, kind of this internal network, we call it an intranet. And so, anytime you're on campus and it's like a campus-only website you can view, and you're accessing stuff there, we call that an intranet. And then when we leave our, internal kind of network, then we're out on the internet. Now, let's say I was a company and I needed to interface with some government agency, and I had to access special things on their servers that aren't open to the internet. That's what we call an extranet. And so there's an internet, an intranet, and an extranet that are out there. The next thing we want to talk about is who runs the internet. First off, we have the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and they're overseeing a lot of, the TCP infrastructure, how things move around. And there's a lot of subgroups in that, like the Internet Architecture Board, and some different committees that work on that. But the one that's probably the most famous is ICANN, or the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And this is the group that oversees so much of how the internet works. And we're going to talk about that in another video. But their primary responsibilities are to assign domain names out to the world. So if you ever buy like a .com or something like that, that's coming from ICANN directly. Even though, indirectly, you might buy it through GoDaddy, but GoDaddy's getting it through ICANN. They also oversee a lot of the protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, some of those. Also the port numbers that are assigned to those, and we'll talk about that and a few other things. So some fun stuff there. So that's a quick little intro to the internet and where that's come from and how that all goes. So